going to be recorded. And we'll share that later on, that recording, for those who attended and those who have registered but couldn't attend. And I think we'll probably get started now as people are starting to come in. You shouldn't be made to wait. So thank you, everyone. My name is Juan Lyle. I head up services sales here at Cobweb. I'm just going to be comparing today. And today's session is around Business Premium, a smarter way to use your IT budget. And today's session and these sessions that we run at Cobweb are not meant to be sales sessions. They are meant to be around maximizing the investments you have made in Business Premium or in Microsoft 365. They're also about giving you some guidance in your decision making. Maybe you're looking to move to a particular license or have some questions around which license you should go for and what you get inside of each license. It's about empowering you to make the right decisions and to get the most out of your investments. So it's not meant to be a sales session at all. That said, of course, if you have any questions post webinar, if you have any thoughts on what you should do around licensing, obviously reach out to your account manager or someone here at Cobweb, and we'll be very happy to offer you some guidance. Speaking of questions, we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you want to put any questions you might have in the chat or in the Q&A tab, you're very welcome to. I'll look to make sure we get as many of those covered as we can. If we have lots and we run out of time, we will endeavour to get back to you post-webinar and give you the answer to your question. So thank you very much, but please don't be shy in doing that. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to James Graves. James is a Microsoft Modern Workplace specialist. There's very little that he doesn't know about Microsoft and how to maximize your investment. And I'm sure he'll evidence that over the next 30 or 40 minutes or so. And thank you, James. Welcome. And over to you.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you again everyone for joining us today. Really looking forward to this one. So as we said, going to go through here all things around Business Premium. Got a little bit of a agenda to kick things off for you all here, which is just going to be kind of a bit of an overview about 365, challenges that businesses are facing today, the importance of Business Premium, the security and the kind of compliancy aspects that you're getting with the product set. We've also got on here the key solutions, some case studies, conclusions, next steps, and we'll get on to answering your questions at the end if they're not answered throughout all of this. But the idea from today is that we can, support you in being able to understand exactly what Business Premium is, exactly what's included in it, why it can support you more in your day-to-day versus a business standard, a business basic license, and things of that nature. So starting off with looking at the challenges, and before I kind of dive into the challenges themselves, as you'll see them on the screen here, a lot of the information and things you'll see over the next few slides come from a Microsoft report that's run yearly, which is something that's known as the Work Trend Index report. So that's freely available online to yourselves. Really good little takeaway if you're interested in seeing that. But what it basically does is takes Microsoft's vast global presence, pulls in indicators, pulls in questionnaires, surveys, and everything in between from tens of thousands of people, and basically builds a picture of that. And that drives Microsoft's product portfolio, what upgrades, what features come, and so on and so forth. So really good read, some really interesting stats and things in there. Again, called the Work Trend Index report, freely available if it is something you want to dig into and look at in a little bit more depth. But kind of the key challenges that we see as a part of this this Business Premium offering and how it tends to support people comes from the 3 points you see on the screen here, which is real-time collaboration, security, and cost. And the reason we kind of focus on these three is because with the, and I'm going to use a swear word here, COVID pandemic that happened, businesses obviously adapted how they were working, and obviously things have never completely gone back to everybody being in an office full time. So you end up with a scenario where you've got staff that could potentially be working from home, working on the move because they travel for business, whether they're working in an office, they're all over the place is the honest answer. So what we do is we are in a scenario now where businesses need to be able to make sure that staff, no matter where they are, no matter how they're working, are able to collect, and collaborate with all of the information and data that is available to the businesses. Now, we're becoming more and more of a data-rich a data-rich world, shall we say. More and more people are taking on, information, and obviously those snippets of information need to be readily available. There's so much data out there that people see it and then they want to go back to it again later on. So it's all about being able to ensure that people can collate that information and access that information as and when they need it. But alongside that, we have the security aspect of it. It's very, very good that people can access this data from anywhere, can collaborate on this information from anywhere, and be speaking to people from wherever they are. But we need to make sure that that data is secure. So there's the risk of cyber attacks that come around from that, with people traveling, joining unsecure networks. Public Wi-Fi locations are a prime example of that. And people being out of the office, emails on their phones and things, it is a lot easier for people to fall, for phishing attempts and things of that nature that are out there in the world. There was a really good stat which came out from this Web Trend Index report, which was 65% of UK SMBs had basically experienced at least one cyber attack in the last 12 months, which is mind-boggling to think of. 65%, that's well over half of UK SMBs have had some form of a cyber attack in the last 12 months. Now, whether that was business critical or whether that was something that was a lot more low end and a lot more controlled, remains to be seen. But over 50% is a huge number there that could potentially have had a security breach, a data breach, and some of the stats that we move on to on the next page kind of show what the implications of those data breaches and things can be. And then last up, we've got the piece on there around cost as well. And that ties in quite nicely to the piece we have there on the bottom as well, where it says legacy solutions don't solve challenges and mixed vendor environments add complexity. So that mixed vendor environments add complexity piece, that's complexity not just from your perspectives, it's also from the people that have to deal with all of those systems day to day. There's a lot more training that comes around those requirements, a lot more updates and upkeep and things that come with those mixed vendor environments. And as it said, legacy solutions obviously create challenges. This is a big push from Microsoft to drive people towards cloud environments rather than being on site with their day-to-day equipment, such as servers, virtual machines and things like that is kind of where they're driving the industry towards, purely from a perspective of, again, increased security, allowing more collaboration, and obviously the cost management perspective makes things kind of a lot more interesting for people to be able to look at that. So, pushing these sorts of products like Business Premium will allow you to, potentially have cost savings associated with that by bundling these solutions into a single vendor environment. And one of the things we'll touch on a little bit later is why you can put your trust into Microsoft with these overall solutions that are going to cover, multiple bases for you, rather than not putting all your eggs in one basket, as some people would say. So now I'm just going to touch on, as I said, a few stats around the security and kind of what the implications of those are. One of the things I do always say with that question you'll see on the left-hand side there is employees are working from more locations than ever. And are you confident that your data is safe? Question to ask yourself as we run through a lot of these slides, the solutions, and the outcomes and things of that nature is, in this scenario, do you think your data would be safe? And again, just think about that as we are running through this. Some of the stats you'll see on the screen there, 300% ransomware attacks increase over the last year, and 50% of those were targeting SMBs. So, huge increases in ransomware attacks that are taking place. 1 in 4 small and medium businesses state that they had a security breach in the last year. That kind of follows on to the stat we had a few moments ago. Over 70% think that cyber threats are becoming more of a business risk. And then last but not least, you've got at the bottom there as well, $108,000. So that's the average cost of a data breach to businesses. Now, you need to look at this from a few different perspectives, because this isn't just the cost of our systems were down and we couldn't access the data, for a period of time. Really good examples here will be things like, the Marks and Spencers and the Harrods attacks that took place more recently. In these scenarios, it's the damage it does to relationships. It's the damage it does to, your own customer base as well. A lot of the times these are being done as indirect attacks. So they will attack as SMB, and that leads them to be able to attack a more enterprise grade customer, potentially of yours. Some of your larger customers could become victim from that sort of scenario. So they're using almost you as an avenue to get to the bigger fish. And that's the reason that we see this. And then that obviously damages brands, damages reputations, and the potential, further fallout that comes with that from, various different legislations, governing bodies and fines, etc., that can come about from the fallout of that. So again, A lot of different ways to look at it. Some really interesting information around that that's available online. And if it's something you do want to dig into a little bit more and look at your security and things like that, the team at Cobweb here are really well placed to be able to support you with delving into that and looking at those systems for you. So moving on now to look at business premiums specifically. As you'll see, it's giving you a bit of an overview here of everything that's included in the business basic, the business standard, and then onto the business premium. Now, we call the business premium at Microsoft the hero product. And the reason that that's done is because of those 7 squares that you see at the bottom there, which is Microsoft Intune. Jump onto the next slide and that will show it for you. Microsoft Intune, information protection, conditional access, Azure Virtual Desktop, Defender for Business, Defender for Office 365, and last up, Cloud App Security. So there is a lot of security, a lot of data protection, and a lot that comes in there around compliancy as well. It's something that Microsoft do really, really well with a product that's known as Purview, which is like a family of products, and much of the Business Premium suite sits within there for it. So we're going to go through the majority of these for you now, looking at them from a solutions perspective and a challenge perspective. So you can see in this scenario, this is what product would fit the bill, and this is how it would secure the environment. But the first thing I'm going to talk about here is going to be multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is probably something that you all already use, or MFA as it is known for short as well. And many of you, I'm sure, will be using this today. If you're not using this today, a form of this would be, for instance, when you perhaps go log into your online banking, you will probably more often than not get a 6-digit code that gets texted to you, and then you have to type that in on your application, for example, to gain access. That would be a form of multi-factor authentication. Now, that tends to be now a more legacy version of what's known as MFA. And the things that Microsoft are driving towards now is something that is known as passwordless technology. So passwordless technology is, rather than it being something that you know like a password and something which can potentially be guessed by a malicious third party, the idea being here is it's something that you earn, making it a lot more tangible and therefore not something that can be guessed and potentially used as an inroad into your business's infrastructure. And you'll see the 4 boxes that are highlighted on there now, which is Microsoft Authenticator, Windows Hello, the FIDO2 security key, and biometrics. So they tend to be the 4 core ones that Microsoft recognise in here. So the Authenticator app, pretty straightforward, application within your phone. When you go to log into your Microsoft, it gives you a 2-digit code. You open up your phone. Normally, it'll be your facial recognition to get you into the application, or your biometrics from your fingerprint. You then type in your 2-digit code, and it will confirm you are who you say you are, and therefore you can access the information. Windows Hello, built into most modern laptops now, which is very much looking at your facial recognition to do that. FIDO2 security is the inserting of like a traditional style USB. Quite often they have fingerprint recognition and things built into them as well. And then last up not least is your biometrics again. So that'll be your fingerprint scanner that's, again, built into many modern laptops these days. So this is all about having something that you earn and not something that can be guessed or given away. You can't give your facial recognition away, you can't give your fingerprint away, and you're not going to pass your phone out and give your phone away for people to be able to access the Authenticator app, for example. So these are kind of, ways of pushing it past the traditional methods of text messages, phone calls that are made to you, things that can potentially be, interrupted mid-transit, shall we say, before they reach you as an individual. And again, that is something that has been known to happen on many occasions. And if you haven't got MFA activated, you'll see a little stat on the screen there, 99% less likely to be compromised by having MFA on there from an identification-based attack. So cannot stress the importance of MFA enough, and passwordless technologies is kind of the way that the world is now moving forward to increase the levels of security that these solutions bring. So, as I said, we was going to jump onto some challenges now for you, and then the solutions that accompany them for it. So, in this scenario, let's imagine an organisation, 50 to 100 employees as an example, where some of the employees are working from an office, some are remote, and some are mobile. So, the customer wants to provide the employees with secure access so they can work from applications anywhere, driving the business forward. However, they are concerned that they haven't got the right security policies in place, concerned around hackers could compromise their credentials and get access to emails and passwords and so on. So they have some genuine concerns there and are looking for solutions that are going to kind of fix that for them. And you'll notice on the screen there, it says something that says Entra ID. So Entra ID is the Microsoft identification products. So included within Business Premium is Entra ID Plan 1, which is basically an enhanced identification version of what MFA and things are, and some accompanying bits that sit around that. So what this basically does is it's allowing users to basically prove who they are before they enter your environment, similar to what MFA does. But where this comes in and gives it a little bit more depth and a little bit more information is you can put conditions in place to state whether people do or do not need to use MFA. So you can have a scenario where if I'm inside the office at the business, it won't push me to MFA. However, if I was trying to log into my work emails and I was doing so from Germany and I'm outside of the UK, you could enforce it that any IP address, so any unique web address from outside of the UK, automatically means you have to use MFA, no matter who you are as a user, whether you're an administrator level or you're kind of the lower end of the totem pole with your security level access. You have to MFA as a part of that. You can also put other things in place there to kind of suit your own needs, where it could be a case of you have to MFA if you have high level access. You're a business administrator, you're like a chief information security officer, for example. You can enforce those individuals that have high level access privileges to always need to use multi-factor authentication. And these conditional access policies can very much be tailored to your own requirements and give you a lot of control around, being able to, thwart a lot of these kind of identity-based attacks. So in the scenario we was just mentioning there, they had concerns around people outside of the business accessing the information and people gaining unwanted access there, utilising MFA and conditional access as a part of Business Premium would be a ways and means of supporting them with doing that, because it could be a scenario where you're outside of the office, always MFA, which means we're always sure of the individual logging into our systems. Really easy one, really quick one there for you to get things going. But again, brilliantly powerful tool. And the abilities of conditional access, I can't state enough just how important and how good they can be for a business. But now looking at something, should we say, a little bit more traditional, and looking at the Defender for Office 365 stack here. So Defender for Office 365 is very much like a traditional style of email security. So this is all about stopping phishing attacks from potentially taking place. Now, a phishing attack, for those of you that don't know, is an email that comes in intending to impersonate in more instances than not. They will send an email in, it will look like it's your weekly shopping coming from Asda, and it'll have a link in there asking you to log into your account, for example, so that they can gain access to your username and password. Now, that link is taking you to somewhere which will potentially be malicious, where it's just going to collect the information, give it to a nefarious party, and they're going to go away and do with that as they wish. So the idea being here is Defender for Office 365 will be looking for various indicators in there to show that this isn't what it says on the tin, is the best way of putting it. So when that email comes in, it will be looking at things like, is it coming from a recognized domain? Is it an email from a party that you receive on a regular basis? Also, what do the links look like in there? What does the body text of that email look like? Is it something suspicious? Is it something we've seen before? Not just on your computer, but from Microsoft's kind of global estate of email security. If they see it once on somebody else's, it means they've seen it on everybody's, which in essence protects you by somebody else potentially having a breach somewhere else along the line. So some really powerful tools there with what they're doing. One of the really, really good things on here that they'll do is they have a stack of products in here which are known as time of click protection, URL detonation, anti-spoofing technology, and multi-factor authentication as a part of that built into this as well. So what we're saying with these 4 pieces that you see on the puzzle here is when that email comes in, and as I said, it has a link which is taking you somewhere malicious so they can collect your email address and password. What Microsoft's Defender for Office 365 suite as a part of Business Premium is doing is it's basically making it so that when you click on that link, it is opening that link up in a controlled environment, a sandbox, a Faraday cage, however you'd like to look at that, and checking it is exactly what it should be. So if that link says it should be taking you to let's say, for instance, your Amazon page, as an example, when you click on it, it's going, well, that's not taking you to an Amazon web page. That web page has some malicious code written within there. We're not going to let you access that. And you would see a screen very similar to what you see there, where it says, this website has been classified as malicious, and it won't allow you to access that. Now, it doesn't just do it on links within emails, it also does it on an attachment. So if it comes in and it's got a PDF attached to it, or if it's got a Word document attached to it, etc., it will scan the document in the exact same way and make sure the document is exactly what it should be, rather than it potentially having anything malicious in there. You mentioned on there time of click protection. So time of click protection means that it's doing this every time you click on that. So it doesn't just do it the first time. It will do it the first time, the second, the third, and the fourth as a part of that. So again, really, really powerful. Does some really, really good stuff there. You've also got anti-spoofing built in, which is checking all of the content of that, checking the domains and things. And then MFAs, if you try to do something and bypass any of these, it's going to make you MFA as a part of that piece there. Okay. So moving on and looking at some of the other pieces here now. So this is moving now away from the security piece and a little bit more into the information protection aspect. So when we say information protection, basically what we're doing there is protecting data on people's devices. Now, this scenario that we're looking at here is the North Winds, the business that we used as an example earlier on, and they're occasionally putting passwords on some Excel documents. These are on things like salary documents, sales documents, things of that nature that are potentially sensitive. So they put the odd password on it. Nothing more than that really is done as a part of that. These documents quite often get saved onto USB sticks and moved on from there. So where Business Premium comes into the equation, where it supports users, is around securing sensitive data. So it uses something that is known as a sensitivity label. Now, a sensitivity label is, in short, a label that you apply to a document, and it marks that document in various different forms. Is it a public-facing document? Is it something that's highly confidential? Or is it something which could potentially be a little bit more malicious, shall we say, than that? So the idea being is create the labels. You create them based on your own tiering system, and then from there we apply them against our documents. Now, these can be applied automatically. They can be applied manually against these documents. There's various ways that can be done. But the idea being is once the label is on the document, it basically means that document becomes secure. Now, whether that document be on your laptop, whether that document be on a USB stick, somebody leaves the business and takes that USB stick with them and has every intentions of moving to a competitor, shall we say, as an example. And as a part of that, it's securing that document no matter where it is in transit. So it's going to say you aren't part of the Cobweb environment we'll use in this example, therefore you aren't able to access that document. It will stay encrypted and it literally becomes useless to the individuals. So again, all it is, little security label. More often than not, it appears as a little shield on people's documents, normally color-coded, like a green, amber, red, depending on the level of confidentiality behind it. But it's protecting that document by encrypting it. And unless you are part of your tenant, one of the users of the business, you can't access that document because of the encryption level associated with it. So really, really good way of securing data, making sure people aren't taking it away with them from the business, making sure that if a USB stick's lost, if the laptop's even lost, and somebody manages to get that data from the hard drive, it's really, really good ways of being able to, ensure that doesn't take place and they can't access that information. Perfect. So touching on that, we mentioned there information protection. There is something that is also known as a data loss prevention aspect of this as well. What data loss prevention does on the flip side of that is it looks for identifiers within documents, such as passport numbers, addresses. It could be looking in there for credit card numbers, for example. And these are pre-recognized pieces of information by Microsoft. So as soon as you create a document and start typing in there what it believes to be a credit card number, it will automatically label that document as highly sensitive. It will automatically label it as public document because it knows that there isn't any malicious or potentially damaging information in there, shall we say. So this is about creating almost like a predetermined roadmap of saying that as soon as you create a document with confidential information in, we will automatically give that a security sensitivity level to that document. Again, really, really good way of being able to do it. Some really good trainable data and things in there. the compliance aspect from Microsoft is forever growing and becoming a lot more complex as well in terms of its capabilities. That can't state enough how important it is for businesses, but also kind of how good the portfolio is from Microsoft there. If it is something you have got a keen interest in, looking at more around the confidentiality aspects and the compliance piece, speak to the Cobweb team. We can arrange for one-to-one demos of these products and kind of the capabilities behind them to look at them in a little bit more depth for your use cases. So again, powerful tools. And again, these bits are included within Business Premium straight off the back. The next one we've got up here for you is looking at Intune. Now, what Intune is, shows a mobile phone here, but Intune is basically a device management piece. So that's mobile devices, laptops, everything in between is basically where it sits here. But what we're going to talk about here is the Northwind business again, and they're working with some personal devices that they have got in place. So when we say a personal device, that would be my own personal mobile phone, and I'm perhaps accessing things such as my work emails from it, as a prime example. And I'm sure many of you do that. I'm sure many of your colleagues do that, have a personal phone, and they'll have their work emails on it purely for the convenience factor. Utilizing a product like Intune allows businesses to maintain control of these applications, and the data within is the primary piece here, even if they are on a user's personal device. So by doing that, what it's basically doing is creating almost like, apologies for that load up, almost like a Chinese firewall between the two. So you'll see that shown there between the two different shades of grey square on the phone. So what we'll be doing here is anything that is corporate data, we maintain control of in its entirety. Anything outside of that, we don't care about. We're not bothered about your Netflix. We're not bothered about your Facebook, your social media, your browsing history. Nothing of that nature is of any interest at all to us as a business. It's all about the managed applications piece there. So we're interested in ensuring that if you download a document from your email, let's say a Word document, that you're not going to save that outside of the corporate environment. So you can't go putting that document on your phone's local storage. You can't go saving it into your personal Dropbox or your OneDrive account, for example. So corporate data stays in the corporate box, shall we say. Anything outside of that, we have zero visibility of, and nobody really cares about that piece other than yourselves. So again, it's all about splitting that device, keeping control of corporate data, ensuring that if that user leaves the business, you can wipe the corporate data off there. The user's personal data remains intact in its entirety, but you can remove all of the corporate aspects from that device to ensure that they don't continue to have access to emails, potentially OneDrive, SharePoint, things of that nature that could potentially compromise yourselves as a business or even lead to a data breach, which can come with untold number of consequences behind that. So it's all about safeguarding kind of sensitive work information is the kind of core piece here. Now, it doesn't just do it from a bring your own device, a personal device perspective. Intune also works from a corporate device aspect. So, business owned laptop, for example, that's given to you on day one, that can be enrolled in Intune, and it allows the business to kind of push things like updates to it. It allows them to ensure the device is compliant because it's staying up to date with all the latest patchwork, all the latest security updates. But not just that, but it's also making sure that you can push your security, your productivity apps out there, So making sure you've got all the latest Microsoft 365 applications, making sure that, if we change phone provider and we go with a different, UC solution, we can push the latest application out there to you for those sorts of solutions, and making sure you have everything you need on your laptop, on your work phone, and everywhere in between for your day-to-day work, your day-to-day job. And it allows people to make changes like that on the fly. Again, really intuitive, and some really good information available around Intune because it's been with Microsoft for a number of years now as a product, included in Business Premium. And can't really stress enough just how good Intune is and how much it's becoming more and more utilized out there. There is other products out there that do the same sort of thing. Big one I tend to come across more than anything is a product called Jamf, which some of you may know, very much aimed at Mac and Apple device style management. We are seeing Intune to place products like that quite heavily, purely because it's included in Business Premium licenses. People can upgrade the license, get all these fantastic features, and still save money against offsetting products like that. So again, some really, really good capabilities there included as a part of Business Premium. And then there's two more pieces I've got to talk about here with you now, which is Cloud App Discovery, which is kind of aimed really at positioning itself to push out something that's known as a shadow IT risk. Now, what shadow IT is, if anybody on the call doesn't know, is it's very much looking at, are all of your staff using the corporate applications? Some of these businesses that we deal with have got 100 staff. Are you aware of every application that every staff member uses for work, for prime example? So me as a user, let's say in an example here for it, I'm a Microsoft user. I have a OneDrive and a SharePoint for all of my application storage. However, I am storing some marketing material inside of a OneDrive account, Google OneDrive storage location. This would allow the business to see that and realize that, wait a minute, we're pushing large amounts of data out here to an alternative storage location. And it will allow us to start raising some questions to go, well, that data is now no longer secure because it's outside of our, kind of corporate box, our corporate environment. Therefore, we need to do something about that. So more often than not, this is very much just an educational piece. With approach marketing, this information, you can't be sending it out there to OneDrive. We need to make sure that it gets deleted and removed, and it gets relocated into a OneDrive, into a SharePoint, which is a corporate application that protects you and does the same job in essence. So sometimes it's just about an educational piece and then kind of closing the loop on that sort of product being used as an example. Now, these are all innocent. Sometimes it can produce things like, things that are being stored in potentially dangerous locations like open source storage and things of that nature, where as soon as you put a document out there, it's in the public domain. So again, lots and lots of potential risks that come around from shadow IT, but utilizing products like Cloud App Discovery allows you to investigate where your data is flowing to, and is there any potential risk where that data is going out to. Is it all recognized sources, or is there quite a lot of information here going to places we don't recognize and we don't want it to? And it'll break it down based on users and things of that nature as to who's doing this sort of activity. So again, really powerful tools, really good in the bring your own device scenarios and environments as well, because it'll allow you to track that sort of activity as well. So hugely powerful tool in Cloud App Discovery. And then last up, probably one of the most important ones here, is what is known as Microsoft Defender for Business. Now, what this is it's basically your traditional style antivirus capabilities, but on steroids, shall we call it, because it comes with a lot more besides that. Now, there is, in the world of security, a lot of acronyms that are thrown around there. What Defender for Business within Business Premium is basically known as, is what's known as an EDR, which is an extended detection and response product. So that's basically means it's doing more than a traditional, kind of AV solution would do for you. You'll see on there, the idea being with Defender for Business is bringing enterprise grade protection that's easy to use and cost effective because it's built into your Business Premium license there. When we say it's bringing enterprise grade protection, now the license of Business Premium is pretty reasonable in terms of its price. Now, I'm sure many of you will have seen the Microsoft 365 E5 license before, which is right at the pinnacle of Microsoft licensing, and quite expensive, shall we say, for most SMBs of the UK. Defender for Business Premium brings the same endpoint protection as you'll receive within the E5 product. A couple of variations, very, very minimalistic, but it's bringing that same level of protection that you receive all the way on the top end E5 licenses there. So really, really powerful features and functionality that Microsoft's allowed SMBs to start being able to utilize. And when we talk about this, kind of the main common thing the Defender for Business is stopping against is ransomware attacks. 80% of SMBs, as you'll see on their list, ransomware as a top concern for them. And we've got another example here with Northwinds being a target of that, shall we say, during this piece, as you'll see on here. So it says, during the busiest time of year, Northwinds traders' mission critical files became unusable. Hackers used ransomware, encrypted the files, demanded a payment, nobody could get access. Common story for most people, and we're seeing these days from the various kind of attacks that have taken place and put out there into the public domain. As a result of this, it's pay up, lose your data, could result in the business being closed down as a consequence of that. However, if they'd have had a product like Defender for Business in place with Business Premium, what this basically would have allowed them to do here is it would have looked to fill the breaches in the first place, so that's plugging the gaps before they even get through the door. If they did manage to get through the door, constantly scanning, it then starts to take action automatically. So there's no requirements for an IT user to be sat there doing things. It will take action 24/7, 365 in the background. So it will look at what's happening, detect what's happening, isolate the incident, take care of the incident, and then it will provide information back to you to say, this is what happened, this is how it happened, and this is how we can stop it happening again. So this is kind of all providing that entire roadmap, basically, from start to finish of stopping an attack before it even happens and filling those gaps, all the way through to the end scenario where there has been an attack, we've stopped it, we've isolated it, we've reversed what's happened, and here's the information which will, kind of allow you to stop that from happening again in the future with the action items needed to be taken. So again, really, really powerful tool, not because of it's just going to stop it, but it also does all the remedial work and things once it does detect an attack in play. So hugely powerful stuff. Like I say, enterprise level solutions here. There is ways of going even further with this, and Cobweb can talk to you about even layering this even further with products that are known as an MDR solution and things of that nature. But again, that's conversations for another time for many of you without throwing too many acronyms at you there. Defender for Business Premium as well. Is also available across platform. So it isn't just we can have it on our Windows device. It also works on Macs, Android, your tablets, your phones, Windows 365 if you are using virtual machines, virtual desktops and things of that nature as well. So it works across all the platforms that are most common in the industry. So there's going to be no limitations there with buying a business premium license and having these features deploy across all of these different operating systems. And then last up, I did say I would kind of put a little bit of emphasis around Microsoft as a security vendor. Now, Microsoft is the largest security vendor in the world. That's shown through various different reports that you can read, Gartner, and so on and so forth. I like to throw a few of these out, which are the independent lab tests and things that have taken place against Microsoft security products. So you'll see AV tests, they give it 6 out of 6. AV comparatives rated it 99.7% for a protection rating. SC Labs give it a AAA award. And then MITRE, which is an industry-leading optics and detection capabilities site, they basically give it a passing score, is in short what they actually do. And that's what it received there. In terms of its place in the SMB market for security, you'll see, looking at this from the IDC MarketScape, Microsoft is right up there in the top right-hand corner. This works very similar to the Gartner Magic Quadrant that some of you may have seen for different industries. But as you'll see, out of the massive security vendors that are out there, Microsoft's market share and their position as leaders in this industry is, pretty much unraveled at this stage. They're doing trillions of security points a day that they're actually processing and looking at. They've got one of the largest budgets for security of any IT business in the world. It's its scale, it's its reach that comes with Microsoft that allows it to have such a large landscape view that they can take action, that they can push things out, and that they can actually build solutions quicker than just about anybody else that's out there. And that pretty much ties me up for today, down to the Q&A section for you. I don't know if anyone's dropped any questions in there at all for us, have they?
Thank you, James. No, I can see no questions at the minute. That often is the way, and people sometimes circle back to that. So we'll have a couple of minutes if anyone wants to put any questions in the chat or the Q&A right now. But thank you for that, James. I think what we've learned there in the last 40 minutes or so is that Business Premium is an incredibly powerful and comprehensive, perhaps more importantly, tool for the SMB community. A couple of things I scribbled down there: 65% of SMBs experienced a cyber attack. You said that at the top of the conversation, which is pretty incredible and pretty scary to say the least. And then you sort of rounded that off at the end there. I think we took away that from a security perspective, Microsoft is incredibly capable and well respected in helping SMBs to mitigate against that kind of risk. So I think what I would say is, if now a lot of the audience and the folks that are going to be watching this will be premium users, by all means, reach out to your Cobweb account manager. If you don't have one, by all means, reach out to Cobweb and we can get you to speak to the right people. If you want to check that you're using premium correctly. Now, a lot of the time, this is all in the, the magic is in the setup, making sure that you have things set up correctly and what have you. A lot of the time, our account managers will speak to leaders of SMB businesses, our IT leaders, and we can help them to potentially save money. This isn't necessarily about spending more money, saving money if they are double or sometimes triple using different applications or different products. There's a lot inside of premium that means you don't have to go and buy other things a lot of the time. So by all means, if you're not sure about that, please come back to Cobweb and we can help you there. We often helping folks to save money. I think there might be something in the Q&A now, so thank you. How long does it typically take for a business? Oh, okay, that was kind of what I was just talking about. How long does it typically take for a business to fully implement and integrate Microsoft 365 Premium into their environment?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually. One of the things that I will say with it is when you are implementing these products, it's really important that they are implemented correctly. Just as Juan was saying there, it's great buying these licenses, but if the implementation steps aren't done correctly, then it can kind of hamper all of that, potentially positive impacts that you could have on the business. In terms of how long does it normally take for these things to be implemented and to be integrated? It could pretty much switches on straight away. As soon as you've got the license, all the bits of the puzzle are there. It's just a case of going in and obviously, kind of crossing the I's and dotting the T's to make sure it's set up in such a way that it's suitable for yourselves as a business. It's a lot of things like the policies that we've mentioned throughout of this, a lot of things like making sure that if you have whitelists and things for your email systems that they're in place. So all in all, it's kind of depends how big an environment you have. That will dictate how long it takes, but 99% of this stuff can be, set up within minutes. Everything works from the same administrative portals. Everything comes out of the Microsoft Admin Center, and then you dive into different portals to do different parts from there. So, kind of a one portal system, log in, can set up anything you need, and the ability for most of this to just be kind of almost turnkey and come out with a baseline level of Microsoft security means that it's pretty quick on how quick you can do that with most of these solutions. But I suppose it will again depend on the size of your environment. 10 user environment, you could probably have it set up in a day. If it's going to be 100, 200, 300 user environment, then in those scenarios you'd probably want to look at a week or so that you can be trialing things and changing things to suit business needs and individual department needs and things.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. No, that's super helpful. I guess the message there is if you're a Business Premium user, make sure that you're using Business Premium correctly. Cobweb, or if you're not a customer of Cobweb, from an MSP perspective, you probably will be if you're listening to this from a CSP perspective at the very least. Cobweb can help you to review your premium setup. Cobweb can help you to execute on an optimized premium setup, and Cobweb or any good MSP can help you to manage and maintain your setup, sort of ensure you have an evergreen, always optimized premium setup, which is also super important. But please speak to your Cobweb account manager if that's of interest to you. If we have no other questions, which I don't think we do, we'll probably wrap things up there. If you have other questions as we've exited today's call, please reach out to me, reach out to the Cobweb team. You're very welcome to do so. But thank you for your attendance. I hope you all found that of interest and of use. I certainly did, James. Thank you for that. And we'll look forward to speaking with you next time. We have a Cobweb Copilot session tomorrow. If you've not seen that and you're interested in all things Copilot, by all means reach out to someone at Cobweb and we can get you onto that session too. So, but other than that, thank you and bye-bye for now.